What about just in general, if we think about heat stress throughout the day, is an animal experiencing the same amount of heat stress in the morning as they are in the afternoon? And how do we mitigate just even a daily difference in heat stress?
Yeah, that's a big question that comes up, and something we try to address in our research. We always use, even in controlled settings, a diurnal pattern, so to mimic a normal day. I think the obvious answer is that yes, as it gets hotter in the barn, the pigs are going to suffer from heat stress more. Interestingly, what we found is that sometimes the ambient temperature in the barn isn't necessarily predictive of that animal's body temperature. Sometimes we find that, even if we do a very controlled heat stress, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, when they've been exposed to very high heat stress, yeah, their body's high, but then you start to cool it down, and by about 7, 8 p.m., their body temperature actually gets much higher than at the peak. And if you look at the behavioral data, we actually find that it's really highly associated with just increased feed intake. Okay. And so they're not eating, they're using behavior, they go down, and then all of a sudden they eat and it's super high again. And so that's kind of where, I would suggest, using multiple input measures to identify when an animal is actually suffering from heat stress. Because if you were to plot that animal's body temperature over a 24-hour period and say, I'm going to say body temperature by increasing ambient temperature, you might actually get a negative slope and say, oh, well, when it's hotter out there, it actually got cooler. So this is a really tolerant animal. Well, that's just because at 7 p.m. it ate a bunch of feed. It got really hot, and it actually looks like at 70 degrees, it's super hot, and wow, it's heat stress at 70. But if you didn't have that, that feed intake data or behavioral data, I know there's, folks are implementing cameras in their facilities. You wouldn't know that. So that's why, at least, and I know a lot of people, their research, we try to use a very multidisciplinary, many measures to address this issue, because, heat is a multidisciplinary, heat stress is a multidisciplinary type problem that needs a lot of people to address it.